Say, folks, I have a question. How long is it going to be before the Democrats demand a special counsel to investigate whether or not Trump colluded with 5 major corporations to issue bonuses to their employees if the tax bill passed? I mean, this couldn't have happened on its own. This could not be something that happened organically. There has to be collusion for this to have happened. Because everybody knows that corporations and everybody else hates Donald Trump. Now, why would these corporations do anything to make Trump look good? And so, how long will it be before the Democrats demand a special counsel? And what will the crime be? The scheme will be to give Trickle-Down a good name and to deprive the Democrats of a campaign theme. Greetings, my friends. It's great to have you. Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone. I cannot tell you what a seminal and phenomenal achievement this is. Setting aside for the moment the substance of this, which we will get to in due course, the very fact that this has happened is astounding and earth-shattering, and believe me when I tell you, the Democrat Party and its accomplices in the media are in the midst of shell shock right now. Of all the things they dreamed of happening this year, this was not on the list. Nothing like this was on the list. Trump was not to have a single achievement, especially legislatively. It wasn't going to happen. The media and the Democrats' combined forces arrayed against Donald Trump would be on the verge of forcing him out of office by now. There was simply no way a substantive legislative achievement could happen. People in the media and in the Democrat Party invested every ounce of energy they have into preventing something like this from happening, and yet it did. And not just happened, it has happened with a unified Republican Party, another aspect of this that nobody dreamed would ever happen. Because Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. And Donald Trump is a pig. And Donald Trump is unsuited and unfit for office. They have arisen every day, gotten out of bed with these beliefs driving them, propelling them, energizing them. It is these beliefs which are responsible for getting their adrenaline going. And it's been shattered. It has blown up in front of their faces. None of this was supposed to happen. Every ounce of energy they've had has been expended toward preventing something like this. Now, just a little bit of a prediction on the tax bill itself, and I mentioned this yesterday. I think this is going to usher in a period of economic growth and American national optimism that many people thought we would never see again, particularly in the midst of the 8 years of Barack Obama when pessimism and defeatism and fatalism was taking over much of our country. This achievement and the substance of it, these are significant tax rate reductions which are going to result in a significant amount of money remaining in the U.S. economy. It's going to result in a significant amount of money being brought back from overseas, repatriated into the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is going to grow like gangbusters. Saw somebody made a prediction it might be as high as Art Laffer. I think he said that it could go as high as 8%. That may be a bit optimistic. But I'm here to tell you that there are hidden benefits in this that nobody is seeing yet because they're not being discussed. Now, on the political side of this, and this is even better, the Democrat Party, in its obstinateness, in its stubbornness, the Democrat Party is now preparing, I kid you not, to make this tax cut, this legislation, along with hatred for Trump, the centerpiece of their campaign to win back the House and Senate in 2018. Now, if you think that doesn't make any sense, you're right. It doesn't make any sense at all. But they don't make any sense. They haven't been making any sense for most of our lifetimes. But they are gearing up. Here's the problem they've given themselves. They have artificially suppressed the polling on this tax cut. By that I mean they have spent the last number of months running it down, ripping it, criticizing it, claiming that it's things that it isn't. A tax cut for the rich, a tax cut for corporations, trickle down doesn't work. I just saw, what's his name, Holland, ranking Democrat in the leadership of the House. Yeah, Chris Van Hollen, yeah. He's just up there saying, well, these bonuses don't mean anything. These bonuses are just PRs. In fact, I saw some leftists last night are advocating a boycott of AT&T for joining Trump in this and bonusing 200,000 employees. Leftists on Twitter trying to gin up a boycott of AT&T. Go right ahead. We will get out of the way and let you try to work that up. Chris Van Hollen today, this is a PR scheme. This isn't what they promised. They didn't promise $1,000 bonuses. They promised $4,000 a year raises. And we know this isn't going to happen because corporations don't give their money away to their employees. It was just every Democrat talking point for the last 30 years just came rolling off his tongue like he wasn't even having to think about it. And he wasn't. Just programmed robotics. They have spent so many weeks now beating this tax cut up. You've seen the polling data on it. We discussed it yesterday. 26% of the American people, and let's accept the polling data for what it is for a moment. Let's not get into the weeds about whether it's accurate or not. I don't think it is, but it doesn't matter. We're going to deal with it as it is. 26% of the American people think the tax cut's a bad idea for every reason the Democrats and the media told them. That they're not going to get a tax cut. In fact, they're going to get a tax increase. The rich are going to get the tax cut. Corporations are going to get the tax cut. And corporations are not going to give anybody any of the money. You're getting screwed. Trump did it for his buddies. Trump cut taxes for him and his whole family. Trump did this. Trump did that. So they got their polling number 26%, and other polls show the same thing. I have to tell you, the polling on this can only go one way now, and it can only go up. This bill can only get more popular. And I'm talking about statistically. They've had to work pretty hard to gin this thing down in polling numbers to 26. They've had to work pretty hard to get disapproval so high. But the problem is that real life is going to kick in. 5 different corporations have done things like promise bonuses to hundreds of thousands of employees and raise their own minimum wages to $15 an hour. And these are just 5, just the first 5. The people that work at these outfits are going to see the benefit. Everybody else is going to see the benefit because there's one thing undeniable here. And every independent analyst looking at this has concluded that 80% of the American people are going to get a tax cut, and it's going to be significant. And then in 2019, when the Obamacare mandate is repealed, we got one more year to go for it. Katie barred the door here, folks. The real life, the reality of this is that people's economic circumstances are going to improve. And juxtapose that against all of the fear and the scare tactics the Democrats put forth when they start polling tax cuts. They start polling this legislation into next year, it can only go up, meaning it can only appear to be getting more popular. I think politically they have shot themselves in the foot by artificially suppressing the polling data on this in their effort to kill it, in their effort to make sure this didn't pass. They have given themselves a circumstance where the polling data can only go up and make it look more popular, which, of course, is not going to help the Democrats as they run a campaign based on the illegitimacy of this. They're going to keep hammering Trump as though they hate him. They're going to keep hammering, well, because they do. And they're going to keep trying to parlay Trump hatred and class warfare into victory in 2018 without any other agenda. The Democrats are going to be seen before too long as the people who will take your bonus away from you. The Democrats are going to be seen as the people who want to take your tax cut away from you. And let them go right ahead. If they think they can win the House back using that and hatred for Trump, have at it. They are living in a fantasy world. They're living in a world where they believe everybody hates Trump as irrationally and delusionally as they do. That was quite a sight at the White House yesterday with all of these Republicans and this effusive praise for Donald Trump. And let me tell you something, folks. It was legitimate and genuine. It was real. These people, members of the House and the Senate, genuinely meant what they were saying. This could not have happened without Donald Trump. Donald Trump has learned over the course of the year. Early on, maybe not familiar, maybe not totally up to speed with the way legislation happens and becomes law. It's not like running a business. And so the Obamacare repeal and replace, they never unified on it. They never got really past second base on it. But this is an entirely different story. The Republican Party is now unified now, and the Republican Party psychologically has now defeated the swamp. Donald Trump has led them to the defeat of the swamp. Donald Trump inspired them to fearlessly plow ahead without concern of what the media was going to say about him. Do you realize how seminal that is? For the last 25 years, we have watched our Republicans cower in fear in the corners, afraid of what the media was going to say about them if they dared stand up for what they claimed to believe in. Donald Trump has been taking the arrows for these people all year long. Pioneers take the arrows. They decided to unify. They decided to come together on this. And it's fun to win. It's exciting to win. It's energizing to win. It inspires confidence to win. And they know what they overcame here. They know the forces that were arrayed against Trump and arrayed against them, and they overcame it. You do it once, you can do it again. You do it a second time, you think you can do it more often. And the more often you do it, the more confident you become that you can keep doing it. So I believe there's much wrapped up in this that is not observable on the top. But if you dig deep, you find more positives in this than you can possibly imagine. You have to look for them, but they are there. And on the other side of the ledger, there are the Democrats swimming against the tide, seeming to be happily opposed to people keeping more of their money, happily opposed to corporations providing holiday bonuses to their employees, happily opposed to Donald Trump and the Republican Party, who are singularly responsible for this, because there isn't a single Democrat whose fingerprints are on this anywhere. There's not a single Democrat who can take credit. I want to go back September 7th on this program, just right back after Labor Day. This is one of many times I made this request or observation, but here it is again. If, just at any time in the past 6 months, or any time in the next 6, if for just 3 months, Ryan and McConnell would work with Trump to advance his agenda, they would own everything for who knows how long. If they would have repealed and replaced Obamacare, if they would have then moved on to tax cuts and done real tax reform, and if they had built the wall, I don't care what Chuck and Nancy do. And I don't care what the Republicans do after. If those 3 things had serious action with an appearance of unity, when the Republican Party on those issues, the Democrats wouldn't stand a prayer for 25 years. Step 1 has just been accomplished. Phase 1. Nikki Haley, the United Nations people are applauding the United States position against our allies, so-called allies and enemies there, finally calling them out and demanding their allegiance, or else we cut them off. This stuff is being cheered all over this country, but the Democrats and the media don't know it because they aren't cheering it, and none of the people they know are cheering it. We put together a montage of the Republicans heaping praise on Trump at the White House yesterday afternoon. Look, it's great, but I can't help but wonder what all could have been accomplished if this had started this way in January.
Mr. President, you made the case for the tax bill. Thank you, Mr. President, for all you're doing.
Something this big, something this generational, something this profound could not have been done without exquisite presidential leadership. Mr. President, thank you for getting us over the finish line.
This is a bright day for America.
All right.
We thank you for that.
But for your leadership, we would not be here today.
We would not be standing here today if it wasn't for you.
Mr. President, I have to say that
You're living up to everything I thought you would. You're one heck of a leader, and we're all benefiting from it, and we're going to make this the greatest presidency that we've seen, not only in generations, but maybe ever.
The media is beside itself. They're wondering how much these people were paid to praise Trump. They're calling them sycophants. They're calling them rear-end kissers, butt kissers. They're saying it isn't real, that Trump has some sort of hold on these people, and he made them come up there and say all these things. There may be a lot of chicanery in Washington, but I'm here to tell you this didn't happen because Trump demanded it. This didn't happen because the sentiment isn't real. These people have needed leadership for the longest time, and it wasn't provided during the 8 years of Obama. There wasn't any real Republican leadership, charismatic, energetic leadership. The Republicans in Washington were led, if anybody, by voters. But there was no leader. There was nobody unifying them, nobody bringing them together. The long knives are out. There were mutinies and other forms of internecine battles going on within the Republican Party. Trump is the difference. They know it. Lisa Murkowski, look at all. They did this ceremony again where they just signed the bill, the House and Senate. Look at all of the women, the Republican women that are for this. Lisa Murkowski, because of drilling in ANWR. You look at it, Susan Collins is in on this. Bob Corker admitted on Fox and Friends today that he now understands what Trump has been going through for a year because of the way he was treated by Wolf Blitzer and CNN a couple days ago. And he now, I didn't even apologize, but he acknowledged to the president that he had been unaware of what the president, the dissembling of the media. Let me take a brief time out. There's much more in this. Of course, your phone calls, you want to weigh in on this. So we're just getting started. Hang in there. Be tough. Be right back. Make no mistake, the shell shock on the left here is real. Again, I can't tell you this. None of this was supposed to happen. Trump's not supposed to still be there by now, folks. But am I right when I'm right? When they get together, when they move the Trump agenda, and the Trump agenda is theirs. The Trump agenda, I don't care what you never Trumpers think, is a conservative agenda. Bill Bennett, who worked for Reagan, is the Secretary of Education for Reagan, was on Fox last night. Bill Bennett said that Trump is more conservative than Reagan and that his judicial nominees are more conservative than Reagan's, and the tax plan here is more conservative than Reagan's. Now, some people are going to argue about that, but you can't say that Trump is a problem for conservatism. Trump has done more to advance and now pass conservatism than anything that's happened, my friend, the last 17 years. I'm talking about real conservatism. It's all over the place. Not supposed to happen. Conservatism was supposed to have been defeated long ago. The Republican Party was supposed to be neutered and rendered irrelevant by this time because of the election of Donald Trump. And look, they are so discombobulated. There was a photo that appeared today. I think it was on Twitter. Don't care where it was. It's Trump sitting in the Oval Office and McConnell, Pence, and Paul Ryan surrounding him. They've all got big smiles on their face. And it's related to the tax bill passing. There's a guy named Dan Pfeiffer. He is a former communications office director for Obama. He said that he hopes that photo celebrating the passage of the Republican tax bill appears on the front page of the New York Times when Trump is indicted. They still think Trump colluded with the Russians, which is why I won't be surprised if there's a demand for a special counsel to see if Trump colluded with these 5 corporations to offer bonuses and a raised minimum wage. So Pfeiffer said he hopes that photo celebrating the passage of tax reform appears on the front page of the New York Times when Trump is indicted. It was followed by Ben Rhodes, the brother of the news director at CBS. He's also a former Obamaite. Ben Rhodes agreed with Pfeiffer and added that the photo should accompany the obituaries of Pence, McConnell, and Ryan. The obits! Steve Scalise, who was actually shot by a deranged leftist, tweeted, you guys might want to reconsider your rhetoric. And they climbed down a little bit. I'm telling you, they are shell-shocked and don't quite know how to process this. because this is such a dramatic failure for everybody on the left. They can't stomach it. And don't forget what we learned yesterday, what I passed on to you. There's a whole bunch of conservative, intellectual never-Trumpers not happy with this, folks. They don't think Trump's the guy to be implementing tax cut legislation because they don't think Trump knows what he's doing. So they oppose it because Trump supports it. I'm not making this stuff up. We have some conservative, intellectual never-Trumpers who are out there saying, well, I wouldn't get all excited about this. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in the economy because Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Donald Trump doesn't know. From people who haven't helped move us one step forward the whole time they've been sitting around intellectually thinking about things. Even the Washington Post is echoing me today. There's a couple of bloggers in the Washington Post scared to death that the tax bill is going to get more popular. Damn right it is. It's going to get more popular because it can't get more unpopular. They polled it so unfairly. They drove down the approval number so low. The only place this tax bill can go in terms of polling is up. And it is going to go up once it's implemented and people start seeing they have more money. And it's going to put the lie to everything the Democrats said, and the Democrats are going to continue to lie about it. The Democrats are going to continue to base their campaign in 2018 on hatred of Trump and running against this tax cut bill, calling it a heist of the federal government. We had a caller yesterday. I hope you people heard this. I hope you heard. She was curious why the Democrats are so opposed to people doing better. I said, because Democrats only want their voters to do better as a result of government entitlement programs or government assistance. They don't want people doing better on their own. Self-reliance and individualism are both the enemy of the Democrat Party. They need people incapable of helping themselves. They need people who are victims of something and therefore are dependent. The Democrats oppose this simply because it's a threat. People keeping more of what they earn because they work is a threat to socialists. It's a threat to the modern day Democrat Party. So they're all in now. And even a couple of their drive-by specialists are worried that the only thing this bill can do now is even get more popular. Here is a list that I have now of the major American corporations who are providing bonuses, some cases raises, as a result of the tax reform package. By the way, let me preface this. We had Paul Ryan here yesterday, and we've had, I think, 3 or 4 seminar callers the last 2 or 3 days who wanted to pepper me and try to trick me into falling for some question on the invalidity of this business because of the corporate tax rate. Somehow that made this thing invalid, and they were lying about how people were going to benefit because all the tax cuts were going to corporations. I asked Speaker Ryan about it yesterday, after, of course, knocking the answer out of the park myself to each of the callers. And Speaker Ryan said, we were losing them, Rush. I said, what do you mean? They're keeping more of their money offshore. Many of them are moving. Many of them planning to move. I mean, it wasn't a groundswell, but we weren't doing anything to help American-based corporations reinvest in America. It was a yeoman's effort to keep jobs here and all kinds. But if we were going to succeed in keeping jobs here, keeping manufacturing here, we were going to have to do something with the corporate tax rate. And so we did. It's all about improving America. It's all about improving life for America. Corporations, you may hate them. You have been convinced to hate them by the left, but they happen to employ people. They happen to provide health insurance. They happen to provide benefits. So here are the companies. AT&T was first out of the box. $1,000 bonus to over 200,000 employees. Boeing, $300 million employee-related investments. Fifth Third Bank. Does anybody know? I remember driving home one day, and I saw this little tiny building where a McDonald's used to be, and it was a Fifth Third Bank. I said, well, and this was maybe 10 years ago. So I privately wonder, what is Fifth Third Bank? Who would name anything Fifth Third? So there has to be a reason. I still don't know. All I know is they've gotten gigantic out there, and they have now offered their employees $1,000 bonuses and $15 minimum wage. Wells Fargo, another bank, $15 minimum wage, donations of $400 million. Comcast, $1,000 bonus to over 100,000 non-executive employees. Do you know who this includes? That's right. This includes people who work at NBC and MSNBC, who have spent the past number of weeks trying to destroy the tax cut bill, and now they are going to get a bonus from Comcast. Now, there's all kinds of there are people. This is unreal. There are people, including people on our side, folks, who are trying to cast aspersions on this by pointing out that it's the result of collusion, that this isn't real. This isn't really happening. It's just because Trump somehow colluded with these companies and did something to make them do this so that he would look good. And it reminded me, David Koch of New York, of the famous Koch brothers family, who donated $25 million to one of the big hospitals, one of the big cancer hospitals, and the nurses union there protested it and demanded the hospital not accept it because David Koch didn't mean it. He was only given that $25 million to mask the fact that he's a racist pig. And so we shouldn't let him get away with it. And so now you have leftists saying we shouldn't let these corporations get away with this. This is just a phony, slimy PR campaign to make themselves look good when we know they aren't good, when we know they're rot gut, when we know they're sleazy and slimy. And I'll tell you what, let them keep on. Let them continue. Look, I know they've persuaded a larger number of people than should have been about the evils of major American corporations and so forth. But I think there's no way that in the end they win on this. If they were going to win on this, they would have succeeded in this being defeated. Look at what happened here, folks. Look at the polling data on this tax bill. 26% of the people support it, and yet what happened? It passed. Republicans in the House and Senate stayed unified. There wasn't a single defect. Well, I don't know about the House, but in the Senate there wasn't a single defection. They stayed unified. Look at the magic that happened here. Now all that can happen is those polling numbers improve because they're so low they really can't get any lower. And when you add to it that the tax bill has real life benefits to it, it's going to result in public opinion on the legislation growing. But even so, if they were going to be able to kill this would have been the time. They were totally aligned and unified in their opposition. Democrat Party, not a single vote for it. The drive-by media doing everything they could. They're even mocking Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, who is front and center next to Trump. They're calling him a token. They're getting on him for being used by Trump as a token. He's a sellout to his race by supporting this tax cut and then daring to stand next to Trump while Trump goes through the public remarks on this. I'm telling you, they are the single largest hate group in our country. And I continue to rely on a personal belief, and that is that hate is not how you grow a winning movement. You might be able to grow an opposition movement, but you're not going to triumph substantively and establish and grow roots for long-term leadership with hate. You can do it with fear for a while, but not hate. Mr. Snerdley tells me that we've had two more seminar callers today with the exact same arguments, same phrases that we've had in the past 2 days on the corporate tax rate. And they try to pass themselves off as lifetime listeners, big fans. They're conservative. Anytime any of you call here and tell me you're conservative, I want you to know I immediately suspect you. You feel the need to have to admit that what you're telling me is that what you're going to say isn't going to sound like it. Hey, Rush, I just want you to know I'm a big conservative. That corporate tax rate sucks. The middle class is getting screamed, but I'm a big conservative. If you have to tell me you're like in other professions, you don't have to tell anybody what you are. We just negotiate the price. You have to tell me you are a conservative, then you're telling me that you aren't. And that you're not going to sound like one. Let's start on the phones. Atlanta. This is Ed. Glad you called. Thank you for your patience, sir. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Rush?
Good, good, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment about Comcast. It's not just bonuses that they're giving out. I received a $1.50 an hour raise yesterday, as well as 10 other folks in my office. So if they're saying it's just bonuses, it's not. I mean, this is fantastic.
Are you suspicious of it?
Am I suspicious?
Yeah. I mean, let me put it, not let me take you out of the equation. Let me just ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Were there people in your office after the bonuses and raises were announced? Were there people in your office who ran around saying, this isn't real. They're just doing this to suck up to Trump. They're just doing this for PR. They don't really mean it. You have anybody who reacted to it that way?
Not in my office.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Good. Because I would guess in your office, based on percentages, there'd be some leftist in there who would want to diminish this and try to cast it as something unreal. It's basic. I mean, it's real, but they want to tell you that Comcast really doesn't mean it. They don't really mean it. They're just doing it to please Trump or whatever, capitalized PR-wise. Let me share this with you. Mm-hmm. Speaking of conservative intellectuals, now I'm not going to mention a name. It's not the point. But this is a well-known, previously thought of as dynamic leader of the intellectual conservative so-called movement. Here's the tweet. Isn't there something creepy about corporations giving cash bonuses to employees explicitly because of the passage of certain legislation or because of specific regulatory actions? Does it have something of a road to corporatist serfdom feel about it? Do you have any reaction like that? Are you suspicious of this? Do you feel this is creepy?
This isn't creepy at all. This is why we come to work.
Were you surprised by it?
Extremely. It was not announced. This is not the cost of living annual raise that we received.
Okay, let me ask you this. Was there any whispering that this might happen if the tax bill passed? Had Comcast management whispered around and let it be known to you employees that if the tax bill passed, there might be some raises or bonus? Was there
none? No whispering. There was nothing said. It was quite a shock yesterday.
I'll tell you why I asked that. I asked that to once again try to dispel the notion that it's a PR move or that there was something ill-gotten or illegitimate tied to it. Now, let's turn this around. Thanks for the call, Ed. I appreciate it. Let's turn this around, look at it from a little bit different angle. Were you surprised? Even before the tax bill was signed today, the official signing will be today. Now, they had the celebration victory party yesterday up at the White House, and that's when all of these corporate bonuses and wage per hour increases were announced. When that happened, how many of you were shocked by it? What did you think when you heard this? The reason I ask is that, remember, the drive-by media and the Democrat Party, for as long as we've been alive, been telling us that corporations don't do this kind of thing because they don't care. They don't care about their customers, and they don't care about their employees. They only care about profits. They only care about the stock price, but they don't care about us, and they don't care about you. So this is announced, and it wasn't just one. AT&T was the first, and then here came four more very quickly. And how many of you were surprised by it because you thought that corporations had become Democrats? They were all supportive of Obama, and you just could not believe that they would sign. Trump is so hated. Trump is so despised. Trump is so unfit This is the daily theme of the drive-by media, and yet here are corporate CEOs who are not unfit and who are not unqualified and who are not out of place. I mean, they may not be liked, but none of them are said to be unqualified. None of them are said to be in jobs over their heads. And here they are trying to get in on this. Did that shock any of you? That CEOs would do something to help Trump when you've been told that most everybody in the business community hates Trump and everybody else hates Trump? I'm just curious. I know you all can't call here and answer it. I'm throwing it out rhetorically. I'm curious what people's react. I was shocked by it. I didn't expect it. And I was totally pleasantly surprised by it. And then it didn't take me a minute to then calculate that exactly what's happened was going to happen. That Democrats and liberals would claim it wasn't real, that others would claim that it was a collusion between Trump and these CEOs, that he had bought them off, that Trump gave them something because they wouldn't do this on their own. And then we saw the Twitter attempt to start a boycott against AT&T for doing this. I think so much of what's going on here is shocking and stunning everybody because the media presents a world, a nation. The media, under the guise of doing the news, paints a picture of this country every day that mirrors themselves. And the centerpiece of it is hatred of Trump. Because Trump is incompetent, because Trump is a pig, because Trump is a barbarian, because Trump is unfit, because Trump cheated, because he colluded with the Russians, all of this. And yet, good, uplifting, positive things continue to happen. And then this thing happened yesterday, and it seemed like everybody that mattered signed on with Trump. It left the left scratching their heads, and they're angry, and they're claiming it isn't real, and they're claiming the Republicans singing Trump's phrases were a bunch of sycophants. But yet there is a story from Howard Kurtz. He's the media analyst at Fox News. Headline, Hell Freezes Over. Media starting to admit that Trump's first year is not a flop. Yeah, some of these know-it-alls in the drive-by media, columnists, reporters, so-called conservatives are having to begrudgingly admit that Trump got a hell of a lot done this year over incredible and against incredible odds. Share details with that with you when we get back. Hey, let me ask you another thing. I just got an email from our old buddy Seton Motley out there. This is a good observation. I thought Trump was this gigantic populist. You know, how many conservative blogs out there rip into Trump and Trump's voters for being a bunch of populists? A populist would never have presided over a corporate tax rate reduction of this size. Populists, corporations are the problem. They take their jobs overseas. They close down American manufacturing, and a populist president exists to punish them and make sure they don't do it. And Trump was said to be an anti-capitalist because he was such a populist. All during the campaign, during the transition, after Trump was inaugurated, all these so-called wizards of smart at so many conservative blogs kept ragging on Trump as being a populist and his voters being populists. And now, you can't get more capitalistic than this tax cut. Right, Snerdley? There are so many people so smug for the last year and a half about what they know and about what Trump doesn't know, about who they are, and Trump isn't. And so much of this learned opinion being stood upside down on its head. Try this. This is CNBC speculating. I told you. I make a joke about it. It comes true. A conspiracy between Trump and big business to pay out the bonuses.
Well, it is, as they say at law school, sui generis. I mean, but we've never seen a tax code change like this, which is, geez, the money's right in the pockets of companies. And I think that they do need to share the wealth. I was listening to people this morning. It seems cynical. I don't know, $1,000 in your pocket is not cynical.
No.
It's good. It's good that,
it's a good thing. Do you think there's a coordinated effort, that there was some sort of conversation between some of these companies or some sort of coordinating body that said this is something that might be a good thing for you to consider doing? I don't know. Just curious that I don't think anybody was anticipating it until we saw the announcement from AT&T, and then it was so quickly followed by Wells and Fifth Third, our parent company. But obviously, there's so many others that could be doing the same thing.
If it was coordinated, there should have
a lot more, right?
That's enough. It's CNBC, Jim Cramer and his crowd, and they're speculating. There had to be collusion, right? This just couldn't happen. We weren't expecting it. Exactly like I just told you. AT&T did it. We were gobsmacked. We were broadsided. They didn't just do this on their own, did? No, of course not. You see, nothing can happen out of legitimacy. Everybody in this town, everybody in media, everybody in the is so damn cynical that nothing, especially goodness, cannot be real. Goodness, genuineness, has to be artificial. Why these they wouldn't do this on their own. They're not that nice. They wouldn't do this on their own. They don't think of their employees this way. They had to be told. They had to be cajoled. There had to be some kind of conspiracy, either between themselves or between them and Trump. You see, the last thing in their world that explains this is reality. The fact that they're getting a major, major tax break, first time in the history of many of these corporations, that's not enough to cause this. That's not. Can't be. Bob Corker on media. I had a newfound empathy for Donald Trump. I called him. I told him that I'd had a healthy respect for the media. I deal with them all the time. And, to attack the media has not been something I do. But I had a newfound empathy for Donald Trump, and watching how a totally debunked story about me spread across the political media. This is Corker today on Fox and Friends. The guys that actually wrote this bill knew I had nothing whatsoever to do with it. But then you have this reporter who says that I did, and all of a sudden people I respect, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, they start printing this as if it's true. And it wasn't true, and they knew it wasn't true. A social media phenomenon generates from this. I've never used in my life the word fake news until today. I actually understand what it is the president has been dealing with. This was Wolf Blitzer getting on Corker for claiming he wrote a provision in a tax bill to benefit his family. And Corker said, no, Wolf, I didn't write the bill. I had nothing to do with writing the bill. I didn't put any provisions in there. My focus in the bill was on the deficit. And Wolf kept pressing him. Well, our sources say. And then after Corker leaves, they assembled a panel to beat up on Corker for writing a tax bill that benefited himself. And so he finally saw the light. He saw what's been happening to Trump all year and now has a new understanding for it, which is all well and good. But why should it take it happening to you before you recognize that it's happening to other people? No. I am not dumping on Senator Corker. I'm asking a question here about intelligence and observation and curiosity. Why should it require the media fake newsing you before you understand that they're fake newsing a lot of other people? Why doesn't Corker know Trump well enough to know that half the stuff or more they're writing about him is bogus? Anyway, that's an outside observation. At least it did happen to Corker, and now, because of the personal experience, he has a greater understanding of what Trump has been going through. Here is Fred in Cleveland. I'm glad you waited, Fred. You're next on the EIB network. Hi.
Thanks, Rush. It's a great day in America. I think that we are witnessing a tipping point. Not only is the Democrat Party completely falling apart and have lost all control and all reality, we're also seeing things fall apart at the UN, in some of the other major countries. But the bottom line is, I think we have reached a tipping point now where the Republicans see what is possible ahead, your prediction, if they could only get together for 3 months.
Bingo.
I think that they will be together for the next 3 years. And the Democrats know it. And they are in complete and utter panic. And if I could add, I'm no Charles Krauthammer, but when I look at CNN, Jonestown, and MSNBC, all I see is self-hatred and dysfunction. I fear that when next year hits and the Republicans keep rolling, these people, I don't know how much farther they can fall. What's the next leg down?
Well, let me ask you a question. Fred, let me ask you a question. Do you have any trepidation or fear here that you may be jumping the gun, that you may be providing a little bit too much emphasis on just the passage of one piece of legislation?
The answer is a resounding no. But the reason to that is what's going on with the FBI and the DOJ and Hillary Clinton and the CIA and everything else. Sunlight is being exposed on the inner workings of our government, and the American people have taken over and said, Trump, clean it up, and he's doing it. And there is no stopping the Trump train from here forward.
That's what
I'm convinced of it.
Okay, you sound pretty confident. I wasn't trying to talk you out of it. I was rather asking a question I think many people listening to you were asking, but I'm glad you held firm. I want to take my own stab at this. You have done the job of a great caller, and that is you've inspired me to think about something in a way I haven't thought about it. There's not very many callers that do that, Fred, but you have. It may be tough for me to explain this, but Fred's point is that we've now reached a tipping point that the passage of this legislation unifies the party, and the Democrats are falling apart, the UN is falling apart, all these things, and the Republicans unifying with Trump, exposing all of this corruption, essentially, that is now, it's there for people to see if they're able to see it and notice it, such as the corruption of DOJ and the FBI, the corruption of the United Nations, and so forth. Let me ask a question. How many of you, well, I know what the answer is. How many of you all year long have been on the verge of jumping off the cliff? You voted for Trump and he won, but every day, all day, the media was, not really, he cheated, he colluded, and we're going to get rid of him. And our forces are marshaling the DOJ and the FBI and the deep state and the Russians, and we're going to take this guy out. And we got our special counsel out there, and we're going to be indicting people, and we're going to be sending them to jail. And it's only a moment in time before we get to Trump. You're finished. Trump's finished. None of this was real. It's a one-up. How many of you thought that was what was happening? How many of you feared that that was the reality? And then all of a sudden, here comes Fred. Hey, you know what? This is a tipping point. And you heard what he said. I think the tipping point, Fred, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think the tipping point was Trump's election. I think Trump's election was the bloom coming off the establishment rose. Trump's election is what has caused all of this. They have the unique ability with their media to make it look like what they do, what they think, what they're believing in is the norm, that it's the majority. And therefore, they were able to make it look like Trump's election was a one-off, an oddity, and maybe even the result of cheating, certainly not legitimate. When in fact, the election of Trump, not this bill being, I'm not trying to diminish the impact of the tax cut being passed and signed, but I think the tipping point, meaning the beginning of the end of the establishment, happened with Trump's election. Trump hasn't lost his base. Trump's voters haven't been talked out of supporting him. If anything, and now with this, Trump's base is going to grow. all during this past year, who is it that's actually been acting unfit for office? Who has been acting as a bunch of pigs? Who has been acting as unqualified or corrupt or what? It isn't Trump. It's all the people out to get Trump who are subverting the Constitution, subverting the rule of law, corrupting the media, everything. It's those people that are demonstrating their unfitness. It's those people demonstrating their flaws. But they have the power to make it look like what they are and who they are is what is normal and acceptable and accepted, and that Trump was an accident of either collusion or Hillary didn't do her job right or something. But whatever, Trump winning was just like these bonuses and raises at these 5 or 6 corporations after the tax. They're not real. That's collusion. These people cannot live in reality. They can only live in the alternative reality they create and manage for themselves. No. I'm not disagreeing with Fred. I think the tipping point happened earlier is all. And I believe that his point about the Republicans, now they're unified. Now they've experienced what that unity brings. It brings victory. It brings fun. It brings good vibes. But victory is victory. Winning is winning. There's no substitute for it. And this was winning against some of the longest odds that you've ever seen. And it does. He's right. It inspires confidence, optimism, and it makes them want to do it again. And it also demonstrated to these guys in the Republican Party that they can beat back the media. They can overcome the media. They can survive all of these onslaughts. Even if it does require Trump taking the arrows for it, they can still do it. They've survived the bully. They've been beaten up on the schoolyard every day for how many years? They thought those days would never end. They wanted the bully to stop beating up on them, so they stopped being who they are. All of a sudden, they unified, got strong, stood together, and the bullies got beaten back. Demonstrating that can be done, that can happen. Let me take a brief time out. We will continue in a moment. Now, looky here, folks. Tom Brokaw has declared jihad on Fox News. That's right. Fox News is on a jihad to protect Trump, and as such, we are at war here with Fox News, and it's going to be sorted out in the final analysis. Brokaw says once Shepard Smith finishes, once his 3 o'clock show is over, Fox is on a jihad to protect Trump. And therefore, we got to go at war against Fox. Tom Brokaw. Journalist versus journalist here. Tom Brokaw, legendary anchorman for NBC, took a hard swing against Fox News this morning on PMSNBC. Now, we have a ban on PMSNBC, so I'm not going to play any audio there. Brokaw said that Trump watches Fox because it reinforces what he believes, citing how they've handled the Russian probe as an example. You know, Tom, I've been on the air with Brokaw on a night the Democrats lost a bunch of elections they thought they were going to win. The 2002 midterms. I was on election coverage with Brokaw and Tim Russert. And I've been at a couple of social functions. He's a nice guy. He was very, very unassuming and all that. This is just caca. Fox News is the only place where the truth of the Russian investigation is being reported, and that is there isn't any evidence of any. You know, you guys are supposedly so interested in the truth and reporting the news. Where is the evidence for this, Tom? Where is the evidence? Don't tell me. They're now calling the Trump dossier, by the way, the Steele dossier. Have you noticed that little change? Because that's the guy who wrote it. No longer it's the Trump dossier, because all of these investigations have cast enough doubt on this thing that people are now asking, was this bogus piece of political opposition research actually used to seek a warrant from the FISA court was something the Clinton campaign made up out of whole cloth, actually used to seek a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. If that is ever proven and established, that is a bigger injustice than you could possibly imagine. All the while, people in the drive-by media, including Brokaw, are trying to ram down your throat that Trump colluded with the Russians and cheated, even if and even while there isn't any evidence. But Fox News has got to go because they're not falling in line. Fox News has to go because they're not joining the fray. Brokaw said Fox News after Shepard Smith in the late afternoon is on a jihad right now on the whole question about whether there is fairness about this or not. This whole assault is on the institutions. What institutions? Oh, the deep state? You mean Trump's conducting an assault on the FBI? Trump's consulting an assault on the Department of Justice? Trump's conducting... Why shouldn't he? They're trying to ruin him. What do you people, Mr. Brokaw, what do you think? That people who are targeted are just supposed to sit there and take it? As though they're being profiled on 60 Minutes or something? Just sit there and take it? Is that somehow the rule of the establishment? When the establishment singles you out, you just sit there and take it? Once the establishment has decided to single you out, they have already pronounced the verdict, and you're just to sit there and take it and then slink away? I thought you were a journalist. I thought you questioned things. I thought you were suspicious of things, especially people in power. I thought you doubted things. But look at all. They're just sopping it up. They're just lapping this up like a bunch of sponges. Actually, they're not. It's worse than that. They're promoting a bunch of lies, and they're calling it news. They are promoting a hoax. They are promoting a bunch of fraudulent allegations, the result of Hillary Clinton bought and paid for opposition research, treating it as legitimate intelligence. What about the damage you are doing to institutions, Brokaw, by believing in this stuff, by promoting this? The FBI is being damaged. The Department of Justice is being damaged. The FBI's reputation for blind justice is being damaged to the max here. And it's Trump's fault because he just won't sit there and take it? Those days are over. And note the language here. Brokaw using this term jihad. Fox is on a jihad right now. You know what a jihad is? A jihad's a holy war. Brokaw says we're at war here and it's going to be sorted out in the final analysis. And Brokaw's he's attacking their opinion programs. But even these opinion programs have real journalism in them. Brett Baer comes on after the Shep Smith afternoon show is over. Brett Baer's being tarnished in this. They just can't stand it. They can't stand that Fox is out rating them. They can't stand that Fox charges more for advertising on their rate card than MSNBC or CNN. I finally found out Fox gets... This is kind of embarrassingly low, if you ask me, but they get $8,500 for 30 seconds. If we ever got down to that, we'd have to pack it in. We couldn't make our nut on that. But, of course, we have to do everything in 3 hours. They have 24. So that's a factor, too. I'm halfway joking here, folks, but that is their rate, $8,500. If we ever charged $8,500, it'd be a misprint on the rate card. And said it'd be somebody's head would roll. 85, but anyway, CNN's around 5,000 and MSNBC's less than that for 30 seconds. What are you laughing at? What, you can't? I can't believe I'm divulging this. Well, I'm just telling you, it was my initial reaction. But again, they've got a 24-hour broadcast day. We have a 3-hour broadcast day. And we only have 5 commercials an hour that are ours. to sell. So there are mitigating factors. Nancy Pelosi's tax apocalypse is the headline in Politico. To listen to the Democrats, the American middle class will be lucky to survive the Republican tax bill. Our caller, which said we've reached a tipping point, may be more correct than he knows. These people are literally losing their minds. Listen to this. Elijah Cummings of the Congressional Black Caucasians on Capitol Hill today, speaking with reporters about stuff.
This is a fight for the soul of our democracy, nothing less. And so I'm going to work hard to make sure we save that democracy, and I will fight until I die. We have seen over and over again how the very pillars of our democracy are being cut down. People's right to vote. Come on now. Freedom of the press, you know that. CIA criticized. FBI criticized over and over and over again.
Yeah. It looks like they got something coordinated here because that's what Brokaw's complaining about. All these institutions being criticized. That means the end of democracy, criticizing these institutions, according to Elijah Cummings. That's my point. When they start loving the CIA and the FBI is when the Democrats realize they got to change the subject from the tax cut. That means they've got to change the subject off this tax bill fast, because you're right, these guys haven't loved the CIA and the FBI in my lifetime. The FBI is a bunch of white guys putting black guys in jail. The CIA is deposing sympathetic communist leaders all over the world. We can't have that. Or the CIA, that's right, the CIA selling drugs to the inner city. The CIA invented AIDS to wipe out the gay community. That's right, that's what these people have said. Now all of a sudden the CIA is under assault from Trump? Back to the phones, Ernie, Saratoga, New York. Welcome, sir. Great to have you with us.
Oh, it's a privilege to speak to you, Rush. How you been?
Very well, sir. Thank you.
I do have to take issue with something I've been hearing the last couple times I've been listening to you about the debate over the state tax write-off. I'm from upstate New York, so they're going to eliminate that write-off for us. But I've been hearing a lot about somehow West Virginia and Tennessee have been subsidizing New York and California because they don't get that write-off. And I just don't think that's being truly honest. It's a nice talking point, but it doesn't fly. The revenue coming into the government, into Washington from New York and California is way higher than those other states. And the word subsidize have been used by you, Hannity, even Levin, and I just don't think it flies.
Well, that's because we got the talking points from Trump. I'm just kidding. There are no talking points. Trump or anybody else. I'm just trying to jab the media.
I've been listening. I've been hearing that word subsidize, and it's not going to affect me much, the write-off, that little bit. But I don't think it's going to affect...
I know how you're looking at this, and in the way you're looking at it, you have a point. You look at your state, New York or California, because of the population of those states, there are many more taxpayers, and therefore the federal taxes collected from those states are much greater than federal taxes collected from states with lesser populations. You mentioned West Virginia. You could mention Kentucky, which is a no-income tax state, if you want. And looked at that way, but you have a point. The reason why the subsidy word is used is you all live in states that tax the bejesus out of you.
Tell me about it.
Right. But since you get to deduct all of those taxes and not pay federal tax on it, that your taxes that are being written off are being subsidized by that money's going somewhere. In other words, what the subsidized arguers are saying is if you remove the deductibility, then all of a sudden that money that you're no longer allowed to deduct, you notice it. It's actually costing you something. You're getting a tax increase out of this because other states are not making up the difference while you get to deduct that. And that's what they mean by subsidizing. I don't think they mean helping you, prop you up and helping you live.
Right, because there's no way that Tennessee is contributing more to the Washington than New York State is.
Well, you mean financially. Yeah, you might have a point there.
Hey, Rush, while you got you on the phone, I've had a bad week. My truck broke down.
Okay, well, then why do you think this policy was included in this tax reform bill?
Personally, I think it's a little bit, getting back at the blue states. Be honest with you.
What do you mean getting back at the blue states?
Kind of like payback for not supporting the current administration.
But it's not just the current administration they don't support. They don't support Republicans, period.
Oh, that's true, too. On a whole, believe me, a lot of people up here.
What would you say?
New York do.
What would you say if I told you that one of the tax writers, when I asked them about this, said, "You're damn right. We're removing deductibility because it's about time these people in these states found out how much their liberal leadership is taxing them."
Oh, believe me, we already know.
That's what I said. They already know. I said that's why a lot of people are leaving already.
Yep.
Okay, so but what could be done to soothe your feelings over this, other than stop using the word subsidy?
Just be honest about it. Using that word subsidy I think it's kind of like making it sound like, oh, it's due to them because they've been getting that write-off for so many years.
What the subsidy means is that the fact that people in these states can deduct those taxes is what allows governors and legislatures in those states to charge such high tax rates, and yet the people in those states don't really end up paying it because they get to deduct it off their federal. And so I think the meaning of this here is that because you are able to deduct that from your federal taxes, you're not paying as much to the feds as you would be because you get to deduct what you're paying to the state. And it ends up being an out of proportion balance based on the high tax rates that you're paying. The deduction you get is huge compared to people in other states whose rates are not as high, who still deduct their state and local taxes. And I don't doubt there's a political component in this. I mean, I don't know that anybody would own up to it and admit it, but I don't doubt that there is. Why should Democrats who want to charge people 10 and 12, maybe in California 14% state income tax rate, why should they be able to get away with that and not suffer politically for it? And the way they get away with it, not suffer for it politically, is that you get to deduct it. A portion of it. And so they get to continue to raise your tax rates and soak you, and don't pay any political price for it. We'll see. The real reason given, by the way, the actual real reason given, Ernie, was we had to find a way to pay for tax cuts for others, and people in these states are considered the wealthy, and the wealthy are having a tax break removed so that the wealthy theoretically are paying more so that the tax cut can be more applied to the middle class. That's the actual tax cut or financial reason that was given to me for the purpose of this. Here's Andrew in Indianapolis. Andrew, glad you waited, sir. You're next on the Rush Limbaugh program. Hi.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, Rush. And my mom and I have been listening to you for a long time, and we both love you very much. And we also love the president's tweets for a number of reasons, but one is because he advertises his successes. And I think as the good news keeps on rolling from these tax cuts next year and the year after that and continuing, that he's going to point out the successes. And that's been a problem with Republicans in the past. They've done good things, but people haven't known about them because the Republicans have been kind of shy about pointing them out. But the president now will not be shy.
Well, the Republicans know the media is not going to report what they want. The media is not going to report honestly about achievements. They're going to lie about failures, and so they don't even try. I think, your point about Trump tweeting is multifaceted. He does get the truth as he sees it out there in response to lying, stinking news stories. he does blow and sing his own tune and horn after he has a major achievement like this. The thing that I hear, we had a caller just this week, people that are angry or upset or not happy with Trump for tweeting, is when he uses these tweets to attack people personally. They say it's unnecessary, it makes them nervous, and it makes them very hard to defend Trump. Such as when he called the NFL players SOBs for taking a knee, or when he makes fun of Rosie O'Donnell's butt, or whatever he does, that they find it's so beneath presidential. It's so hard to defend, Rush. I just don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it makes it more relatable to everybody. I mean, many people are thinking the same thing as the president, and they like a president to be thinking what they're thinking. I enjoy it. It's hilarious too. It's nice to have a funny president and not
admit,
kind of a robot.
I have to admit, I find it hilarious too. Many of them, and I kind of unloaded on a caller, I guess it was yesterday or the day before, and I didn't mean it personally. I didn't really unload. I got very passionate about it. But I got this idea that, so what? You have to defend Trump. Do it. Who are these people? Where do they get off assuming the right to sit in judgment of everybody else? Why does everybody have to justify what they say, do, or think to these people? And I resent this whole notion that there's a bunch of speech police and propriety police out there. And while they let some of the most base, profane, ugly stuff get tweeted all day long, and they laugh about it and they support it and they do sketch comedy based on it. And then here comes Trump, and all Trump does, by the way, is react. Trump doesn't start anything. And I think when you get down to it, that's what really bugs them, because they're not used to it. They've had a free ride. They want to set out to destroy somebody. They do it. And the target just sits there and takes it. Except Trump doesn't. And he dishes it back to them, and they then launch, and it's improper, it's unseemly, it's unpresidential, and blah, 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 blah. But I know, and I've talked to enough people who voted for Trump, it's not going to bother them, it's not going to make them not vote for him, it's not going to distance them from him, it's going to tear apart his base. And you have a good point about how he uses it politically. I tell you, Trump's tweets are often the only opposition to the entirety of the drive-by media. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. Just enough time to say thanks for being with us today, and we have to get out of here. But remember, we're going to be here tomorrow. It'll be an Open Line Friday edition of the EIB Network, and we'll deal with whatever happens between now and then. We'll be on top of it, folks, or underneath it. Wherever we have to be is where we will be.